Welcome to Young Asia Television.
Hello and welcome. It has been described by some as the largest hostage rescue mission in the world. Although exact figures of civilians trapped in the last remaining LTT strongholds are still unknown, each day more people come into government-controlled areas. The last 72 hours in particular have seen a dramatic rise. But as the number of civilians coming into IDP camps increases, so too does the problem of providing them with adequate facilities. In our first report, we take a look at the situation.
20th April 2009, a day which saw nearly 40,000 civilians crossing the lagoon in the Pudumadalan and Ambalavan Pokkane area as they fled from the LTT-held safe zone towards government-secured areas. Since then, the flow of civilians into these areas has continued almost uninterrupted, and today totals over 150,000. At a special press conference held on the 21st of April, Minister of Mass Media Lakshman Yapa Abewardena spoke about the armed forces' ongoing attempts to clear the safe zone of all innocent civilians.
නමුත් අපේ හමුදාව මීටර් 30ක් මේ බැම්ම බිඳලා අපේ හමුදාව ඇතුල් වෙලා සිවිල් ජනතාව නිදහස් කරගත්තා ලෝකයේ පළවෙනි වතාවට මෙතරම් හිර කරගෙන තිබුණු ප්‍රාණාපකරුවන් ප්‍රමාණයක් නිදහස් කර ගැනීමේ මහා මෙහෙයුම ඉතාමත්ම සාර්ථකව කරා. අපි ඔප්පු කරලා තියෙනවා සිවිල් ජනතාවට හානි නොකර මේක කරන ක්‍රමය මොකක්ද කියලා.
"16 welfare camps in Vaunia and 4 in Jaffna are in place to cope with the influx of civilians in terms of providing relief aid and adequate shelter. Here, the government and humanitarian organizations working by its side have another kind of battle on their hands, namely ensuring the well-being of these displaced communities and facilitating their resettlement and rehabilitation in the near future. Preparations for this eventuality, which began in September 2008 with the establishment of Vaunia as a humanitarian hub, are now being put to the test. I have with me today Jeevan Thiagarajah, the Executive Director of the Consortium of Humanitarian Agencies, which as a network of humanitarian agencies have been doing and continues to do an immense amount of work with the internally displaced people that we have just seen and heard about. Now I know it's very difficult to quantify this need, so I was wondering if you could just help the viewers to better understand just how much aid is needed right now.
All the IDPs, whether they are in Jaffna, Vaunia or in Mullaitivu, are being provided with dry rations by the World Food Programme. World Food has launched a global appeal, but it's my sense that they have covered the rations requirements until about at least August 2009. What's a struggle is what is called complementary food, which is your chili powder to garlic to all other issues. And there we have a struggle on our hands because the financial resources required aren't coming in the volumes that we need. Education is a huge challenge, simply because schools haven't been able to function in the Wanni normally for this whole year. Children have lost out. So education requires a very intense focus. Health too is being stretched severely, simply because our health facilities aren't equipped to handle this kind of volumes. Then we are also dealing with the extra number of people who have come, who have daily needs, queries, questions, answers required. And there again, I think there's definitely a focus. We haven't forgotten that. But it's a very much of a pressing need to address.
So there's a vast spectrum
Absolutely.
of needs here.
Absolutely.
So how is the CHA, can you tell us a little bit about how the CHA is involved in either supplying the aid or to these people?
We've been feeding about 4,500 people every day for the last 2 months. That's with private donations. We are also shipping milk powder for children to the safe zone, maybe every 2 to 3 weeks, each time a shipment goes. And lastly, we are trying to ensure that the disaster management experience we've got is adequately and shared in a timely way with all those who are working there so that we stay professional.
So it's clear from what you've just told me that you're familiar with the ground situation. The question I want to ask you now is quite a simple one, but may not be so simple to answer. In your opinion, would you say that the quantity of this aid is enough?
It's okay, it's enough in Wanni. We don't know exactly how many are in the safe zone. There are debates about the numbers. And I think until we know exactly how many are there, we honestly would not know whether we are giving enough. Every 2 weeks there is now about 1,000 tons of basic rations, but 30 to 40 tons of complementary food, and about 15 tons of milk powder going in.
Is this to the safe zone?
It's to the safe zone. But we continue to receive reports which say it's not enough. And I think we'll only get to the bottom of it if we go there.
All right. So what's the problem there? Is it a problem of access?
It is still dangerous ground, and the safe zone is being supplied with ICRC escorted boats and ships, and there is no regular inflow of humanitarian staff, whether it's government or otherwise, going in, which is the subject of conversations at the moment as we speak.
Would you say this is the most pressing need at the moment in terms of supplying this aid?
It's about looking at what next. There's a huge pressure on us to look at and show proof that we are looking for early recovery. So there is definitely a focus going on in terms of early recovery moving out of Wanni. And there are a few practical issues around how do we move out of Wanni, which we are dealing with now.
So the early recovery process, can you just tell me in brief what that's about?
The way it is done now is that you need to clear ground, certify it is safe, and then for people to move in. Now this entire process has to be repeated for the entirety of the Wanni. And we need to understand because we haven't got all the people in one place, they are in different places, Jaffna, Wanni, Muletevu. Then there is a question of safe ground, essential services, finances to support it, aspirations, markets, economies, etc. But it's something we'll have to deal with. It is inescapable simply because neither do we nor does everybody else, except that we will keep people as IDPs for too long.
So just to end with, now from January we've been hearing about the worsening situation of the IDPs. Their numbers are growing daily almost, and you've just told us about the difficulties in supplying aid, in facilitating this early recovery process, and so on. Now here we are in April, and the situation seems even more urgent than before. What's next for them, in your opinion? Is it going to get worse, still worse, before it gets better?
Not necessarily. I think we may have seen the worst overall. What could get worse is if people get hurt physically, and that we do not know yet. But if you can wind down without people getting hurt more, because everybody is displaced and there is no more displacement that we can possibly see, then the next phase is to keep walking out and scaling up the recovery. And that's what we are focusing on now. We are looking at a few imaginative options, clearly. I think we are restless to get on top of it and succeed this time. And I think we've had about 25 years of experience to deal with it.
Okay, on that hopeful note, best of luck, Jeevan.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
Sure.
Ensuring that these people get proper assistance should now be top priority.